And Benji wants to talk about some problems with indoctrination as it relates to the problem of evil. Benji, how are you doing today?
I'm good. This wouldn't be secularity, would it?
Secularity is not on today, although he will be on the Eighth Experience a little later on.
Oh, okay, good. So I called in last week, but I wasn't able to get a hold, on the line. And I was going to talk about the problem of indoctrination first, because this is one of the other reasons I wasn't able to call in. I've been in jail for like 3 months, which kind of sucks. And while I was gone, somebody broke in my house and a whole bunch of other stuff. But so when I was in the jail, they had these preachers coming in, and these preachers would come in and visit people, yada yada yada, and they would preach about different things. And me being me and knowing what I know and the history of the Bible and all that good stuff, well, I decided to go up to the preacher and I give him a task and I say, well, and I actually told him to call in to y'all. I don't know if he's ever going to. But I told him, I said, God is, I didn't really say that he's evil, which, I mean, in some case, in some ways, yeah. But I basically told the preacher, I said, have you read Exodus 21? I kind of pulled a Matt Dillahunty, and I was trying to see if the preacher knew his Bible, because a lot of preachers, they preach from different parts of the Bible, and they don't take the time to actually read the thing. They just go off what they was taught as a kid. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. And they go off what they was taught as a kid. And so, challenging them on stuff and trying to open their eyes to what it actually says is difficult. I mean, well, not that difficult, but it is difficult because they don't want to admit to it. And in particular, this preacher, he had, and I forget which fallacy it is. I do know it's a fallacy, though. There's been a few people that have called in and did this. But basically, his excuse was, well, he's God. And he's God, so it makes it right, essentially, is what his argument was. And,
so let me interject here real quick here, Benji. I want to try to summarize what you're saying here. Are you saying that it's indoctrination that leads people into the wrong version of Christianity? Is that what you're saying? Are you suggesting that it's diverting people that could be good Christians into the bad Christianity? Is that what you're?
Well, actually, I think all Christianity is bad. I do believe in God, but I'm more of a Gnostic. And my belief system is very old. Actually, it's like the first sets of Christianity, that kind of stuff. That's more my belief system. So heaven, hell, limbo. God isn't all good. I don't believe in the Trinity either. That was added on by the Catholic Church later on. But I mean, it's just, there's a bunch of problems with it. And then when I try to point it out to people, they don't want to listen to it. And I don't know if it's just willful ignorance or if it's because they don't know their own Bible.
But rather than talking about the problems, Ben, rather than talking about the problems with the Bible, which I'm sure myself, you and Scott may largely agree on, what is it specifically that you believe regarding God that we might disagree with you on? Because this is what this show's about. It's about exploring ideas together. And rather than just, we don't want to just sit around in a great big circle jerk talking about shit we agree on. That's boring. That's not interesting for anyone. Let's talk about the stuff we disagree on. So what is it that convinces you that God exists?
Well, I've had personal experiences, but also just the level of gods and, just gods in general throughout history, they're inconsistent with each other in some ways. But there's been gods and religions and things way before Christianity was even thought of. Babylonia or Mesopotamia, paganism, sacrifice, all that kind of stuff. I believe that predates Christianity.
So what is it that convinces you that the God that you believe in is true? Because we can agree that there have been many gods throughout history, many of them mutually exclusive. They cannot exist alongside each other. So what specifically about your God is it that convinces you that it exists?
Well, mainly just, and I don't really want to fall into the watchmaker trap here, but basically, I think there's a higher being, but I don't know. I wouldn't really necessarily call it God, because if the definition of God is something that can be all powerful, it's kind of self-contradictory in some senses, because if God was all-knowing and all-powerful and all good...
Benji, forgive me again. Sorry, I don't mean to keep interrupting you. I'm just trying to keep the call on track. We're not so bothered about what you don't believe in, the kind of God concepts and the theologies that you don't accept. I'm asking you about the one that you do accept. What convinces you that being exists?
Right. Whether you call it a God or not, how do if you believe in a higher, quote unquote, higher being or higher power, why?
Well, just personal experience mostly, and life experience.
Okay, well, I would love to talk to you about personal experience. I just want to set it aside for 1 second. Is there anything other than personal experience that you would add on before we jump down that very, very deep hole that is labeled personal experience? Is there anything other than that you would? Let me ask you this in the context of your original comment. Do you feel like you could have been indoctrinated? Do you think indoctrination has contributed at all to your beliefs in your higher power?
No, because my belief system is one that not many people even do anymore. And the ones that are around here, at least in my area, Southern Baptist, Church of Christ, Methodist, which I have been in those churches, Catholic Church, Methodist Church, Baptist Church. I've been all over.
Okay.
And I went between them. And they have different belief systems, but I usually go to church just to go to church, if that makes sense.
Okay, so if there is there anything other than personal experience that leads you to believe there's a God? And I would like to talk about that personal experience in a second here, if you'd like to. But before we do that, is there anything else, or is it only personal experience?
Just my life and personal experience.
Okay, so can you share with us some of that personal experience? Like, what was happening the day that you realized, wait a minute, I believe in this higher power?
Well, I've always believed in Jesus, but I also recognize that there was a lot of text and telephone, essentially, and that it is possible that some of that stuff probably didn't happen the way that it says it did. But
you're still focusing on why you're not believing these other beliefs. We're asking you, why do you believe? And so what is the personal experience that led you to believe, yes, there is a higher power?
Well, I died in a stadium, and then, which I don't know if this was my brain or not, essentially, but I died in the stadium, and I was standing above my body, and I wasn't floating. I was just standing in front of myself at that point.
We have discussed, Ben, I don't wish to interrupt you, but we have discussed this particular incident with you before when we had a medical doctor on the show who kind of went into great detail in explaining the process of dying and that how that operates. We have a lot of callers on the line, and I don't particularly want to cover old ground with you. So is there anything other than that experience which we've already kind of talked about? And if viewers are interested in that conversation, go and find that episode. It is up on YouTube, and you can listen to it there. Is there anything other than that particular experience that convinced you, or is that the sole experience that convinced you?
Well, yeah, kind of. I mean, I've always believed in Jesus somewhat. I was, yeah, pretty much. And then I was also going to talk about the problem of evil. But...
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate your candidness there. And like I said with the previous caller, I very, very do much appreciate when callers call in and are open and honest and will draw lines under, where things have, where they might have doubts and things. I do appreciate that. I think what I would suggest, because we have got a lot of callers, is go back and listen to that episode again that you called in on with Dr. Ben, and kind of look at what Dr. Ben was saying to you. If you want to call us back on the same subject, because it is an interesting subject, but I don't want to cover old ground. So what I would suggest you do is you go and re-listen to that call where you had that conversation. Yeah, pick out the parts where you disagree with what Dr. Ben's saying, and call us back and let's have a discussion, preferably when Ben's hosting, which will be next week, I believe. Give us a call back.
Well, see, the only thing I disagree with on that is that the senses can be unreliable, and I actually have listened to that video.
But we know.
Okay.
So Ben, we know that human senses can be unreliable. I would implore you to go and read psychological studies on this, whether it's just perception, the way we perceive things, whether it's memory. There's countless sources in neurology and psychology, many, many studies which demonstrate that the senses can be unreliable. I'm writing a book on this very subject, on epistemology, on skepticism, on how we assess the world around us. And the first 2 chapters of that book, laying the groundwork for the rest of the book, are all about how senses are unreliable, how our brain tricks us. It's very, very important to know this stuff. So if you're in doubt on that, go and have a look at those studies. Just type into Google, are our senses unreliable? Is our assessment of the world unreliable? Is our brain unreliable? And you will get countless results back pointing you in the right direction. So I'm going to let you go, Ben.
That's all we have to gauge our reality.
It is, and there are ways we can gauge that reality while taking the fact that our senses are unreliable into consideration. But I'm going to let you go, Ben. I appreciate your call.